Are live. Yes, I think we pretty much are live. And good afternoon, everybody. As you can see, I am here with my lovely friend Karen. She's still not there. She's insisting on staying at least for another week.
I'm still here.
And we're having lots of fun. Would you say, Karen,
We
that
are
we're having
having
lots
a
of
great
fun?
time.
Today is our Healing Hands Around the World. But before we get started with this, first of all, I'd like to say hello to my spirit guide, Grey Eagle, who, as always, he's tickling me now, is standing to my right side. And we'd like to say good morning to, no, not good morning, good afternoon to Chris. Say hi, Chris.
Hello, Rosemary. Hello, Karen.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Chris?
I am keeping myself busy with all your emails in the office and requests for the bottom bricker, which actually happens to be coming this Wednesday.
Oh, this Wednesday.
So.
Oh, we're doing a bottom brick this Wednesday?
We are. We are at
something going on. What time? What time?
11 a.m.
Oh, good. Oh. For 1 minute there, I thought that I'd really messed up. Oh, good. I'm looking forward to that. Who do we have as a bottom bricker? Is it a new bottom bricker? Is it an old bottom bricker? Chris, what's going on with the bottom brick?
Well, Michael has volunteered to be on our show.
Okay. Didn't I do a podcast with Michael a while back?
I believe you've actually done 2 podcasts.
I have. So I know him a little bit, but that's all right. But I don't actually know him personally. So I'm really looking forward to that. And that should be very interesting. I would think, tell me if I'm incorrect, Chris, he is, aside from my students, aside from all of the years that we've been doing this bottom brick exercise with my students, we can put them to one side for a moment. I think that Michael is our first male bottom bricker since we've been doing this show. Is that right?
I would agree with you.
Good. Okay, so we're really looking forward to this, and it should be interesting because, you know, do you remember that book? I'm trying to think who wrote that book, and I met this guy, so I should know his name. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and we think differently. Males.
John Gray.
That's right. I got the Gray bit, but I couldn't remember the rest of it. I actually was in California at the same time as he was. We were doing a workshop, not together, but we were doing workshops for the YPO in California quite a while ago that was. And I really sort of like and interested in what he has to say, because men do think differently, I think, from women, and men do see things in some ways differently than women. And we've got a haulage person.
You're turning around.
I think he's only using our driveway, but anyway, yeah. So, are we sure? Yes, I think so. Anyway, so sorry about this, everybody. But what was I saying? I've forgotten what I was saying. What was I saying?
You were saying about men thinking differently.
Yeah, and they do, and so I'm going to be interested. I know that Michael is a lovely and a sensitive person, but I'm going to be interested in that aspect of things as well. So that is 11 a.m. Did you say, Chris, on Wednesday morning?
Yes, exactly. 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, then, Eastern Standard Time. If you want to know more about that, please go to our website, rosemaryaltea.com. All right, this afternoon is about healing, and this is our Healing Hands Around the World show. And yes, and we're going to be talking about healing. Now, very often when we do our healing shows, I not only talk about healing and about different types of energy and so on, but I also we'll also have a few minutes of healing where I give people healing. This is what I'm going to ask you to do today, which is very weird. If you are listening to this and you would like some healing, I'd like you to sort of, just as you're listening to me and as you're paying attention, I would like you to sit in a nice a chair, nice sort of fairly straight back, feet on the ground, very cozy, very comfy, just relax, hands, palms upwards on your lap in what we would call a receiving position, because we're not actually going to do a specific healing. However, as I'm talking to you, we're also sending out healing to anyone and everyone who will require healing. But it occurred to me the other day, and so many people ask me this, and so many people have misconceptions about healing, and so many people have ideas of there are so many different ways to give healing. There's Reiki. I think a lot of people know about Reiki. There is I'm trying to think. There is the idea of energy healing. There's the Native American way, going into the sweat lodge and doing all of that stuff. And people have different ideas of what healing is. And each person you talk to who gives healing, depending on how they've been taught, depending on who they've been taught by, will give their own idea and not just their own ideas, but they'll give their own version of what they feel that healing is. So I thought what we'll do today is we'll talk about the kind of healing that my group and I do, the kind of healing that Gregel has taught to me, the kind of healing that the RAAH and then consequently the I forgot what it is, RAAH, the Rosemary Altea Association of Healers, and the American version, the Rosemary Altea American Association of Healers, which we ran for, oh gosh, so many years. But I have taught healing for a long time. I've had students who I teach healing to, and I teach people to learn how to become healers in their own right. Karen is one of these, right, Karen? Mm-hmm. How long were you a student of mine for? Can you remember?
Yeah, I was a student for 7 years.
Okay, and Chris, I know also was a healer. Chris, how many years were you a student?
It took me 4 years to get my certificate, but I consider I've always been a student since then even.
Well, yes, I was going to point that out to Karen. How long did it take you to get your certificate? Can you remember?
7 years.
7 years.
Remember, I did it.
Well, that's because you were traveling back and forth from Canada, so so it was harder for you, but you persevered, right?
I did.
Okay, all right then. So let's just talk a little bit about my idea of healing and what it means, and then we're going to go to the chat room. Is there anybody in the chat room today, Chris? Do we have anybody watching here?
There are a number of people waiting because they need healing for themselves, and then others who like to join on anything you do.
So just remember, if you are a person who needs healing, as you're listening to me, as you're listening to my voice, you need to be comfortable. Sit in a nice straight back chair, hands, palms upwards on your knee. You can close your eyes and you can still listen to me. You can still listen to my words, or you don't have to close your eyes, but see if you can put yourself in that space of listening, of paying attention, and of just absorbing what is going on here. If you cannot put yourself in a chair because you are either bedridden or it's too difficult for you, you can lie down. But when you lie down, sort of if you can prop your head, be comfortable, prop your head a little bit and palms upwards, just the same thing, and just paying attention and listening and learning is going to be extremely helpful to all of you. So, all right, so when I think about healing in its most basic form, and when I began learning about healing, teaching healing, and being taught about healing from Grey Eagle, my first idea of healing and of a healer is probably one of, if not the greatest healers of all time in history. Whether you are Christian or whether you are not doesn't matter. History shows, and whether you believe that or not doesn't matter. But history shows. Sorry, we've got Siri in the background. We're ignoring it completely. history shows that Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, however you want to refer to him, the Son of God, I know a lot of people consider him to be, um, the, the first amazing healer, and history shows that probably the greatest that we know of in history was Jesus Christ. And so can you give it to me, please? I'm going to switch it off. I'm so sorry, but we're getting.
Cabbage farmer Abe Woodhull, Jamie Bell, becomes an unlikely hero with
There. We can do what it likes. I'm so sorry about that. Anyway, so let me just reiterate the one of the greatest healers, if not the greatest healer in history, is Jesus Christ. And we know from many of the stories that we have heard of Jesus through the Bible and what have you, we know that he was a great believer of a laying on of hands. He founded or became, or however it developed, he was or formed, or his beliefs formed what is known as the Gnostic Society. And there were groups of people since Christ, after Christ, at the time of Christ, since Christ, who considered themselves Gnostic. And agnostic means to not believe, and Gnostic believes, I guess, to believe or to be invested in the teachings of Christ. So my early years going to a Christian church, going to a Baptist church, making the decision when I was 15 years old, making a decision on my own without any influence from anybody really. Even though I went to church and I loved my teachers in church, I was not ready to be baptized until I was about 15 years old, which is quite old in many churches. So I made the decision to be baptized. I made the decision to, when you make that decision, what you're deciding is that you're going to try to follow in the footsteps of Jesus Christ. And when I first learned of healing and became, more interested in healing, the first person I met as a healer was a friend of mine, Paul, who I'd met when I first started learning that there were other strange people in this world like myself or similar to myself anyway. And Paul was a healer, and he'd been a spiritual healer for 30 years. Now you notice that I'm using the term spiritual healer. I'm not using the term just healer. I'm using the term spiritual healer, and I'll explain that in a little bit. So Paul had been a spiritual healer for over 30 years. Then through Paul, I met a good friend of mine, Mick McGuire, who was also a healer. He had been a member, and in fact, I think he'd been president of the Spiritualist Church in the city of Doncaster in England for a number of years, and then became a healer. And I will use the term again. I think he would probably say that he was a spiritual healer also. So is there a difference between spiritual healing and any other kind of healing? And I think there are subtle differences with every type of healing that you can imagine, whether it's Reiki, whether it's runes, whether it's energy healing, or whatever it is. There are so many similarities, but there are also those very subtle differences. So I first became interested in healing, but never ever wanted to become a healer myself. Now, I'm going to say something to you. Don't get upset with me when I say this. Hear me out when I say this to you. I hated being around sick people. I really did. It was not my thing. The idea of going into a hospital, even just to visit a friend, I really hated it. Now, this is because I had been very, very sick myself, got really, had awful issues, awful situations. And the idea of walking in, when you walk out and you sort of not quite well and healthy, but when you walk out and you're done with all of that, and you're done with all of the horrible treatments and the horrible stuff that you have to go through, you never really want to walk back into a hospital again. And walking back into a hospital, or walking amongst sick people, reminded me very much of the stuff that I had to deal with and the stuff that I had to go through. So when I first started learning about healing, I was fascinated by it, because I'd grown up with the idea of Jesus. I understood the laying on of hands as much as I could. I was fascinated by it, but no, don't ask me to do that, because I don't care for sick people. I don't want to be around sick people, and so on and so forth. And this is what I would say to Grey Eagle. And he's, even now, after all these years, we're remembering back to so long ago, how, didn't really, who cares whether I wanted to or not, basically, is what he's saying. I had the ability, so get used to it. And that's what you're going to be doing. And you're also going to be teaching a lot of other people, and you're also going to be opening a healing center, and then, oh golly, then you're going to be opening another healing center and another healing center, and on it went. And oh, then horror of horrors, then I was going into the hospitals and dealing with every situation that you could possibly imagine. Children were the most difficult for me, but somehow or another, even though I hated it, let me see, how can I put this? I loved it too. I loved the fact that just holding someone's hand, just talking to someone, just being there for someone, just listening to them. I loved the fact that I could make a difference, until at some point there was never a question. It wasn't whether I wanted to or not. It was simply that's what I did, knowing full well that this was part of my spiritual journey. So it was tough getting there. It was difficult. It was an odd situation for me. Sort of having high expectations from people. And this is what I want to talk about today. And this is what I want you to help you to understand today. How are you all doing, those of you who are wanting healing and receiving healing? Because boy, oh boy, there's a blue energy coming your way. And it's been coming your way all the time I've been talking to you. I'm sending out healing to all of you. So don't forget that, please. Now then, when people come to, somebody says I'm a healer, and people come to you, they come to you because, I don't know, let's say they've got arthritis, or they've got a tumor, or they've got what else? I mean, how many different things can we think of why people
back pain.
think of the people in our healing center who used to come? Back pain, injuries of some kind, women who couldn't get pregnant,
The child that had seizures.
the child who had seizures. I mean, you get just about everything, I suppose, a doctor might see in his surgery on a daily basis, we saw in our healing centers. And people would come to us from, I don't know, all over the place. People had no idea of really what we did. They just heard, there's a healing center, they're really good. I went, and look, my hand that's paralyzed for years is now not paralyzed at all. So it's very difficult to explain to people. It's very difficult for people to understand when we refer to ourselves as spiritual healers. Now, if somebody comes to me for, let's say, a tumor, I'm going to hold their hands. I'm going to let them talk to me. I'm going to listen quite clearly. And at some point, if they've come for healing, I'm going to give them healing. But I need to explain very clearly. I'm giving healing first and foremost. When I put my hands on you, if you're present with me, I will always put my hands on you. Or when I sit, even if I'm giving distant healing or absent healing, I am using my energy. I'm projecting my energy. I'm projecting energy in different colors, in different ways. I'm projecting energy of different strengths, and I'm surrounding you with my energy. Now that happens whether we're doing absent or distant healing, or whether the person is in front of me. The only difference in giving healing to someone who is sitting in the same room with me is that I will lay my hands on them, and of course we're able to talk, and we're able to talk beforehand and afterwards also. What does it mean, projecting energy? What does that mean? Well, if you can think, how many times have you heard me, many of you say thoughts are living things? A thought is a tiny pulse of energy. That tiny pulse of energy goes out into the universe, bing, 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 bing. If that tiny pulse of energy is towards a person, that tiny pulse of energy goes out to that person, hits that person, let's say, and then returns to me. So whatever energy I give out will come back to me. It will either come back to me depleted, or it will come back to me even stronger than when I sent it out. My job is to make sure that it comes back to me stronger than it went out, because there's no way I want to deplete my energy. So tiny pulses of energy, tiny thoughts, you can send out healing as in a healing prayer, because a prayer is simply a collection of thoughts. Bang, 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 out, 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 they go into the universe. Those tiny pulses of energy that go out into the universe, they reach the person you're thinking about. That person absorbs that energy or surrounded by that energy, and then off it comes back to me, right back to its source. A little bit like a boomerang. Energy will always return to the source. So why do we do it that way, and what happens? Am I thinking, okay, dear God, this person has cancer, or this person has terrible headaches, or this person has a tumor, or whatever it is? Am I thinking that? Absolutely not. No way am I dealing with the physical in this instance, because we are spiritual healers. What is the most important, I feel, with every single one of us is our soul, our spiritual being. Let's just define the difference between the soul and the spirit. Lots of people think it's the same thing, but it isn't. The soul, that creation born from different types of energy. We talk about soul signs. We're mentioning soul signs. We are, each of us, a soul created from different types of energy. The soul is housed within us. I sometimes say to my students, where do you think the soul sits? Do you think it sits in your heart? Do you think it sits in your stomach, your head? It could sit in your bottom. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter where it sits, where it seats itself, but it is within. It is within you. It is who you are. It is a pulse. It is energy. It is that amazing creation, that spiritual creation, that the wholeness, that thing that makes us whole, that makes us well. The spirit, what is the spirit then? If that is the soul, and I liken the soul to a little bit like a flower bulb, okay? We come to this earth like the flower bulb. Let's say it's a daffodil bulb, shall we? Like the daffodil bulb, it puts its roots into the earth. Our soul puts its roots within us into this earth, excited, coming for the reason of having experienced this earth experience. So like the bulb, the soul puts its roots into this earth, and like the bulb, if it is well and healthy, if the soul is well and healthy, at some point as we feed it, as we give to it, and we're going to feed it energy, we're going to feed it good thoughts, we're going to feed it incredible joy, we're going to feed it happiness, we're going to feed it all of those things. We're also going to feed it pain and hurt. So the soul will experience all of these things which will feed the soul and help the soul to grow and help the soul to become whole. As the soul becomes whole, just like the flower bulb, it will flower. That beautiful daffodil will at some point emanate from the flower bulb, emanate from the soul. And that is energy. That is the energy that the soul puts out. And that energy, that aura of the soul, is what we call the spirit. So the soul is like the flower bulb, and the spirit is like the flower. The more you feed the soul, the more you give to yourself, the more you are aware of your own spirituality, the more you're aware that you need to be kind to yourself, good to yourself, as well as being all of those things to other people. You have to feed yourself and you have to feed your own soul. And the more you feed the soul, the more light and bright your energy, your spirit will become. Now, as a healer, this is where we get to the point. As a spiritual healer, first and foremost, I will not concern myself with whatever physical ailment you have. As a spiritual healer, my concern, my energy is going to your soul, because my energy is going to feed your soul. It's going to lighten and enlighten your soul. It's going to create an energy. It's going to give your soul that energy that the soul so desperately needs to become brighter, lighter, and to flower. So how does that then affect us physically? Well, sometimes it doesn't affect us necessarily physically, except that it can relax us and calm us and create a tranquility, but it won't necessarily get rid of the tumor or the arthritis. It won't necessarily solve the backache or the back pain. But what we as healers hope for, and in many ways rely on, is that as your spirit becomes brighter, bigger, as the soul is fed and becomes more aware of its own needs, its energy, its spiritual energy gets bigger, brighter, and permeates throughout the physical body. And very often we see what are known as miracles. Sometimes they're small miracles and sometimes they're big miracles. But what we are after as spiritual healers is we're after creating within our patients that big, bright, beautiful, bold spiritual light that fills us up and will very often create this incredible healing within our physical body. People come to me and they'll say, I want you to put your hands on my tumor and take it away. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put my hands where it's necessary so that your soul will receive the healing that I'm giving. As the soul receives healing, it becomes bigger, brighter, more beautiful, and permeates throughout the body. I've been accused, when I give people healing, I've been accused of putting them to sleep, because actually what it does is it does create a peace and a harmony within the physical body. It creates this ability to give healing and to give power and to create this incredible, beautiful energy so that your soul can finally breathe. It can finally be brighter. It can live more. It can be more than it ever thought possible. And that light that we create, or is created by the soul as it is being fed, is what very often will give healing, physical healing, the headache will go away, the backache will be, wow, that's great. The tumor will disappear, shrink very often. A lot of healing, physical healing, can take place as we are giving our spiritual healing. But first and foremost, we give healing to the soul. So a spiritual healer is not going to say to you, oh yes, come to me because I can promise you this cure or that cure. No, 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 no. That's not what we do. And many of you have heard, and if you go back on some of these sessions that we do, many of you have heard me say the prayer, dear God, please allow me to be a part of this healing process. What the healer is doing is reaching out to God, reaching out to that God force, that universal God force, that incredible energy that is out there. What we're doing is reaching out. We're trying to absorb the energy, that universal energy, but we're also wanting to be a part of it. We're wanting to be a part of that healing energy that is out there, so that we have more power. We contribute to more power. We contribute to that God energy, that incredible force, that universal God force that is out there. So we help to create more and more and more of it. During the course of this prayer, towards the end of this prayer, after we've asked, please may we be a part of this, please will you allow us to join our energy with that universal God force that is out there, so that we can give more and be more powerful and sort of be more of who we are, so that we can allow our patients to be more of who they are. When we do that, at the end of that prayer, we always end, I teach my students this all the time, dear God, I will to thy will. Now, I'm going to say this one last thing here, and then we're going to go to the chat room. Dear God, I will to that will, I will to thy will. What does that mean? It means that as a healer, I know absolutely that I cannot ask for the well-being of my patients. I cannot say, dear God, and by the way, please allow me to join in here, but by the way, could you please take this tumor away? Could you please take this backache away? I can't do that. Why? Why can't I do that? You would think it's the natural thing for us all to do. And boy, oh boy, there have been times, especially with children, when I wanted to say, God, please, 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 heal this child, cure this child, take away the physical pain of this child. So many times I've so wanted to do it. However, I also know absolutely that as much as I think I might know, I don't know what is best for my patient. Perhaps that soul has come to this earth in order to experience the pain and the heartache. Perhaps that soul has come to this earth in order to be, in torment emotionally, or learning through that. Dear God, please cure the cancer. Help make this person live. How do I know that I'm not in fact saying, dear God, can we sort of postpone this incredible experience that he's about to have or she's about to have? So I cannot, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm only combining my energy with that God force. And this is what a spiritual healer is all about. We are combining our spiritual energy with that spiritual energy of the universe, with that God force that is out there. And when I say, dear God, I will to thy will, basically what I'm saying is, I don't know all of the ins and outs. I don't know what is needed here. I don't know, honestly, what is best for my patient. But God, you do. So whatever you decide is best, that is what I'm happy with. And that is about a spiritual healer having absolute trust in God and absolute faith in what they're doing, and in the fact that what they are doing is the right thing, because God decides, not us. Chris, why don't we go to the chat room here?
Okay, Cheryl's asking, are angels also allowed to send healing?
Absolutely. Our angels very much are involved with the healing process. Yes.
All right, Linda's saying, I'm learning so much from you. Thank you. Would Reiki be connected to this in any way?
Okay. Reiki is a very different thing. Um, we have to understand, so many of these things are ancient arts. And, in the days when Reiki began, there would be a Reiki master in the village. And the Reiki master might choose a child or maybe even 2 or 3 children to live in the house, and they would live in the house of the Reiki master. Their parents would give up the child would go into the homes of the Reiki master, and they would there for the whole of their lives. If the Reiki master lived to 90, they would be there to they would be there. They wouldn't become healers, they wouldn't become Reiki masters until the Reiki master passed. It's a very ancient art, and the Reiki master would teach 24/7 all the time. It was a way of life. Now, okay, Reiki, like so many other things, I don't want to bash Reiki too much, but there's so many things. You too can become a Reiki master in 3 months. You do a course with us. Wow, you can become a Reiki master for what is it, in a year or 6 months or something. So I think that people have a taste of perhaps what it's like, but certainly they don't know. And also, I was privileged to be asked by a group of Reiki people when I was in Hong Kong. I was privileged to be invited along to talk to them and for them to talk to me about what they were doing. One of the things that I did not like about Reiki, but that's only my feeling, is that they have this idea of if they give energy to you, you've got to give something back to them. No, I don't. No, that's not me. But at the same time, everybody's different. So for me, Reiki does not work for me. So many of the different arts don't work for me, but I'm happy with what I'm doing, and I'm not here to slam or to criticize what anybody else is doing. I'm just talking to you about me and what I believe. Now, in England, the SAGB, which is the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain, they used to have this. Well, anybody could be a healer. People went to spiritualist churches all the time, but then they brought in government guidelines, and a lot of people did not like that. I actually liked that very much because it meant that people had to adhere to certain rules and regulations, which I think is a good thing. And so the rule became that if you were to be a healer, you had to train for I think it was 18 months or 2 years. You had to go through this proper training for 2 years. You just heard Karen. It took Karen 7 years. It took Chris 4 years. I don't adhere to the fact that, oh yeah, you do your training 2 years, bingo, you're not training to be a doctor. You're not training to learn just about the academics of a thing. It's about energy. It's about how fast you can go. It is about how much you can learn and absorb and how you can use that. So it's this is not a 2 year thing. I've never actually given a healer a certificate after 2 years. It's usually been 3.5, 4 years. I think that we'll have Karen and Chris speak to that in a few moments. But let's carry on with some of these questions for a little bit.
Okay, Rhonda says, I try to watch every time you are on, Rosemary. Not only is it healing just listening to you, but I've learned so much. You're my teacher, and thank you so much.
Oh, Rhonda, thank you very much. Thank you. Let's have more, Chris, and then I want to hear from you and And Karen, a little bit, do you remember we have time constraints, but we'll try and give them as much time as possible. And if you have a question for Karen, or if you have a question for Chris about what it's like to be a student, and can you imagine that this one here took 7 years? 7 years. There's good reason for that. And 4 years for Chris. So it's a long time to spend with someone. You might want to, put a couple of questions to the two of them. So, Chris.
Rosemary, there's a question early on from Karen saying, can you ask Gray Eagle and or Rosemary how long it takes for the transition after death to the other side? I just lost my father-in-law today and lost my mother-in-law 4 weeks ago. They were both such lovebirds together, 70 years since they were 14 years old.
Don't tell me anymore, because we don't usually do this in this circumstance. But who is it asking this question?
This is Karen.
Oh yeah, not this Karen, another Karen.
No, yeah.
Karen, this is from Grey Eagle here. Didn't expect to do this today, but this is from Grey Eagle. They are together. I wish I had more time for you, but this is, we do have a lot to get through here. But right, I got a lovely man here who is laughing and telling me it took seconds in Earth time, which is very different. Oh gosh, we're going to get into what's the difference in time. So let me just say this to you, my darling. They are together, apparently still very much lovebirds. And I have to tell you, oh my darling, so joyful, so joyful, so joyful to be together. He just couldn't be without her, which is why he went so fast, so quickly. Anyway, and then yes, and you've got to stop though. They're waving at you, Karen. We have to go. Let's go back to this subject, Karen. You may or may not get another message from them at another time. I know that you watch our shows on a regular basis, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. But they just want you to be assured. We're here, they tell me, and we're together. So there you go. Chris, let's go back to this quickly.
Okay. Cheryl's asking, are our hands the main way to accept or send energy? It seems only natural to raise or upturn our hands.
Well, okay. Every single person on this planet knows how to give healing. A child falls, we pick it up, we scoop it up, we rub its knee, let me make it better, or we rub the injury, let me make it better. It's a natural that our hands, but it's not just our hands, it's the voice, it's the tone. Basically, it's the energy that we use. Let me make it better. Somehow let me make it better. I know that I give Reese healing with my voice and my whole energy. So I think a lot of people do use their hands, and I do teach my students how to create energy and how to know that energy is flowing. So we do use our hands for the process of healing. But as I said earlier, mind power, the power of thought is the most powerful thing that we have. So mind power, the way that we talk, the way that we are, the way that we can be, it's all part and parcel of it. Keep going. One more question, Chris, and then I'm going to ask you and Karen to sort of give, if there are any questions for either of you, let's have them too.
Christina's asking, how can I help myself not feel guilty asking for help from my angels and God? Sometimes I get in my head and say, why would they help? Why should they help? Don't they have better things to do? Am I bothering them?
They don't have better things to do. Your spiritual growth is their concern. You sound to me like you're a perfect candidate for the bottom brick. Why are you feeling guilty? What's that about? So stop that. Ask as much as you like. Jesus Christ was known for the saying, ask and it shall be given unto you, and so do it then. And just absorb it and just be joyful that they're there for you. Right. Karen, do you want to go first? As a student of 7 years.
Sure.
So,
Student is 7 years, but I'm still, no, I got my certificate as a healer.
okay, we know that you're
Okay.
still learning
But
because
I'm
we
learning.
all are. I
Yeah.
still am. So, basically, as a student, what was it like for you? And you can't talk about what you learned, but
Oh.
what what was the best thing about it? What was the worst thing about it?
Oh, that I was continually learning every time. That's why I continued to progress and do what I did, because I came from Toronto and I traveled long distances. And the first time when I decided I was going to do this, it was if I received something from that, then I would continue to keep doing it. And so I continued to do that for a long,
So you
for
were
a long time.
so you were committed.
So yeah, because I kept going back learning something every time I came. And I was learning and growing and knew that that was good for me. It was good for me to put good energy out there.
And was there a worse part about it? Aside from sitting for 24 hours on a bus, getting to Vermont
Well, there
from
were
Canada.
some tough times for sure. Like when we talk about being on the
You,
hot seat.
you need to look at the camera because that's
Okay,
where you're talking
sorry.
to those people. You're not talking to me,
I
you're talking
gotcha.
to those people
Okay.
there. The hot seat?
Being on the hot seat with Rosemary, but that was a good thing because the best way to learn is about things that you got to learn and grow from.
But
Sometimes it's not as
But
difficult.
you did squirm a bit, would you say?
Sometimes, yes. Yes, yes, but those are those are memorable times too, right? Especially, yeah, because that's where you grow. when you
Okay,
learn
Chris, what about you?
Well, for me, when I look back at the beginning, it's really a journey of self-awareness, understanding where our thoughts are and where they lead, understanding where our vulnerabilities and um, things that we hide from others and we hide from ourselves. So it was a great deal of self-growth as a healer. And I can remember the day I got my certificate, it was all a surprise that this was going to happen. And I remember, because I consider myself, the strong earth sign, you can get through anything. And I can remember as soon as I picked up that certificate, I started crying, even though I absolutely did not want to cry in front of other people. And it was the impact of, I really knew nothing even after 4 years. I was just a babe in the woods, and more would be coming, and the responsibility of what it meant to be a healer, that all hit me at once. Um, and then the hardest part, I would say, is much like Karen said, we call it the hot seat, because you're looking at yourself and other people are hearing your stories, and you're admitting to yourself and in front of other people, some things that you just really didn't want to admit, but you had to in order to grow. And so, it's more understanding those bits and parts of yourself that have to be healed in order to help yourself and others.
Let me just clarify. The hot seat is where I put my students. They don't willingly go into the hot seat. And it might be one student or it might be several students at the same time. But the hot seat is where any teacher, any good teacher, sees the need in the student to push them, and to push them perhaps even beyond their limits, or the limits they think they have, because the teacher knows what their limits are. So as a teacher, you have to sometimes push your students for them to really dig deep inside of themselves. And nobody likes to look in the mirror. Sometimes it's okay if you're being a good girl and you've had a good day. We like to look in the mirror and say, did good today. But nobody really likes to dig deep and look in the mirror, because I think all of us think, that we have shortcomings. So sitting in the hot seat is facing yourself. Any very brief before we go back to questions from our viewers. Chris, anything else?
No, not at this time, Rosemary.
I just want to say that when you talk about the hot seat, the other thing is that you have to realize that the group has developed a safety and a trust amongst each other and with Rosemary.
Yes,
Right?
you're not doing it in
Because
front of strangers.
This is built up over years and years and years of being
Yeah.
together
And you've learned
trusting
to trust
and
each
learning
other.
from each other and learning from Rosemary and trusting that.
And I think
process.
it's important that my students, and I think with any teacher, if you don't trust your teacher, you shouldn't be in their class. You shouldn't be in their classroom. You should go somewhere else. If you can't 100%, 1,000% trust your teacher, no matter what they're teaching you, if you can't trust your teacher 1,000%, then get out of that schoolroom, because it's not right for you. Chris, let's have a couple more questions. I just want to, before you go there, I'm still sending healing to everybody. So just, I'm going to keep sending out my energy to you all. Go, okay, Chris.
Judith says my primary, I'm assuming that means physician, approves of adding spiritual healing to her medical practice, and I appreciate that.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for that, Judith. I think that's so, years ago, when I would go into, I'm going back, 30, 14, years, lots of years. Anyway, when I would go into hospitals, I would go in at the request of the patients. And, if I had a patient who was undergoing surgery, they would often say to me, can you be there when I wake up? And I would strive to do my best. Now, very often, the doctors were the ones who would balk at it. But if it was a request of a patient, they couldn't say no. However, the nurses, I'm going to tell you, almost 100%, we had so much support from the nurses, and some of the nurses would also whisper to us, can we come in and watch? Can we, can we see what it is you're doing? Or and I would often find this as I was walking out of the hospital, there would be nurses sort of along the corridors. They would pop out of little cupboards, or sort of look at the linen rooms or what have you, and grab hold of us and say, can you tell me more about it? Nurses were so open-minded about it. Of course, nowadays, 30, 40, 50 years or something ago, was it 100 years ago maybe, when I would go into hospitals, now it's changed. People are much more open about it and much more open-minded about it. But the reason I wanted to talk about this today was to define and to help you guys to understand and to define the difference between a spiritual healer giving first and foremost to the soul, to the spirit, to the energy of the soul, to feed the soul first and foremost, so that then the body can take care of itself, which it often does. And I think that people are very much more aware. They're very much more open-minded now, the medical profession certainly. And I've been invited on a few occasions to Johns Hopkins Hospital, which is a very famous hospital here in America, for those of you who don't perhaps know, to go and give talks to, not to patients, believe it or not, although I've been invited to visit patients there as well, but to talk to the medical profession, the nurses, the doctors, the administration, and every time I went, we'd have a whole crowd of people, all sort of involved in one way or another in the medical profession, and all wanting to know more and wanting to be more open-minded about it. And I think that's also an important thing for us to know. We have progressed. Keep going, Chris.
All right. This is from Linda. A question for both Karen and I. I have been connected to the spirit world since 4 years old. I'm just wondering, how and when did you realize you were on this path?
Your questions have to be brief. Your answers,
your
answers have to be brief.
I when I was a massage therapist and I was learning more about energy, and I was doing courses in energy that just didn't sit for me, and that's when I searched out for Rosemary.
So basically, you started to be aware when your 20s or 30s or what?
I would say most likely in my 20s.
Okay. Yeah. And Chris?
I've believed in this stuff since 5th grade. I don't know what the age that is, 10, 11, something like that. So I've been pursuing it my whole life.
Great, good answers. Next questions. Keep going, Chris.
Maggie was asking about what she's feeling when she's meditating or sending healing. So, is it normal when I send healing or meditate? I feel a tingle in my forehead above my eyebrows.
Nice. We like it. It's normal. It means that you're opening up. It means that you're becoming more aware. It means that your chakras are beginning to open a little bit. Yes, Maggie, it's normal. Keep going. Chris.
Okay, both Judith and Maggie have similar questions, so I'm going to combine them. How did Karen and Chris hear about your healing classes and begin studying? And are classes better in person or can it be distance learning?
Well, how did you hear, Karen?
Well, I had read your book, The Eagle and the Rose, and so I knew of Rosemary, and then I'd read more books, and then I went to a healing
She
conference.
became a groupie.
And then
She sought me out.
and I asked you right away. I knew I was going to have the opportunity to meet you, so I had been doing classes with somebody that had stopped, so I went, oh, I need a new teacher, and I knew that was the one question I wanted to ask Rosemary if she took on students.
And
Yeah,
at the
Karen.
time, I did. Chris, what about you?
Well, I was going to finish off, Karen, if you will. Classes in person versus online.
Oh, I do think classes in person
For you.
were better for me. Yeah.
Chris?
All right. I heard about healing through attending the Adventure of Being Alive conference down in New York City. There, Rosemary said that she was going to have another event in Vermont. I went to that event, and at that event, she said she was going to be getting classes for whoever wanted to in Vermont. I actually like a combination of online and in person. I think both have advantages.
I think in a way it's a little bit of a sort of an unfair question, because I think it's fair to say that the students who have been able to study with me in person, we are able to build up more of a camaraderie, because after the classes we hang out, we sometimes have dinner, we get together, we get together at certain events, so it's more personal. Our online students, I think because they've never experienced anything else, so they're just loving it. And maybe we should ask, would you rather do online classes or nothing? Because now, especially with COVID in the last few years, it's either online or nothing. So I think that they would say that they have a great time online. Wouldn't you, Chris?
Absolutely. I mean, we just ended a 2-year program, and the people, it's the students, rave about it. They're constantly connecting with each other. The advantage of both, because in a Zoom classroom, you can still build a team. In person, you can still build a team. So I don't think anyone's losing out by being online.
Okay, Chris, any other questions? We're coming very close to time. We'll continue for a little bit.
No, I think that's the end right there, Rosemary, right now.
Okay. So, all right. So this has been an educational program. I've tried to, again, as you've been involved, as you've been listening, we have been sending healing. When I say we, I mean myself, I mean Karen, I mean Chris, and those of my students who are listening in. I know that you've been sending healing out to our viewers. Healing can happen in a second. I always say to my students, let's do this for 10 minutes. We sit the patient down, we talk to them about what we're going to do, and then we give between 7 and 10 minutes of healing. Usually with me, it's a laying on of hands or distance healing. We do the same thing. That 10 minutes is necessary for the patient, much more so than is necessary for the healer. If we give them less, they feel as if, well, what happened? We want more. They don't need more. Healing can take mere seconds to give. Just thoughts are living things and we put them out there. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be putting out our healing thoughts to all of you. We thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to thank Chris as always. She's the best. Karen, thank you very much for being here. If you would like healing, if you would like to be put on our healing list, please email Chris, Kris, at rosemaryaltea.com, or you can simply write into rosemaryaltea.com. We'll get it from you either way. But if you could put in the subject line healing, then we'll know to deal with you sort of as quickly as we can. So we do have a healing list, a prayer list. We send out healing every day. So if you feel that you or someone you know might benefit from that, absolutely. We also have the Healing Minute, which is 11 a.m. wherever in the world you are. And we're talking, I just mentioned that healing takes seconds. The Healing Minute is literally that. Joining forces, joining mind connection, putting your thoughts out there into the universe. Dear God, please allow us to be part of your healing process. Allow us to join forces with you, to join our energy with yours, in order that we can send out healing in the best way possible. Dear God, I will to thy will. I think that took me something like 30 seconds to say, and that's all you need to say at 11 a.m. wherever in the world you are. If you just think that thought, give it a few seconds, sending out your energy. And less than a minute it takes, but if you want to do 5 minutes, that's also up to you. If you have your own healing list, or you'd like to mention people as you're saying that prayer, you'd like to mention the people who you would like to receive healing, just you can do that too. There are lots of different ways. We'll talk about that in another of our programs. So healing works. People say to me, how do you know it works? Well, I know that touch is important. Whether you touch someone with your mind, with your heart, with your hands, doesn't matter. It always has a consequence, and it's always a good consequence, especially when those thoughts, that touch is coming from a good place and a wonderful place. We should be sending healing out every day. If you want to join in wherever in the world you are, just join in with us. Think of us. We'll be sending healing. We'll be putting it out into the universe, and we'll be surrounding our world, this world of ours, with that incredible, beautiful healing energy. I'd like to say thank you, of course, to Grey Eagle, and thank you especially to him for helping our lovely viewer who wanted to know about her, I think it was father and mother, and thank you, Grey Eagle, for giving us that wonderful message. We don't know how you feel about it. Whoever you are, we'd love to know that too. So don't forget to comment if you'd like us to know how you feel. We hope you're feeling great about it. So I'd like to say thank you to Grey Eagle for his participation. We shall be back. Let me see, what day is it today? We're going to be doing the bottom brick on Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. and we're going to be doing it with Michael. This should be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But if you can't make it, you can't watch it, remember you can always find us on YouTube. Chris can put up the link, or if you go to our website, RosemaryAltea.com. Go to the website, you'll see it all up there, and you'll be able to find out how you too can tune in. Even after the event, you can see it recorded, and the bottom brick is great. So, and of course, Thursday morning, gosh, we're busy this week. Thursday morning, we shall be doing our Spirit World Sees All, and every now and again we'll be popping in with maybe an off the cuff. We haven't done an off the cuff in ages. We'll have to do an off the cuff. So we'll be popping in and out. So keep posted. Thank you, my darlings, once again. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for your support, because we do love it. And again, sending lots and lots of healing to all of you. In the meantime, until I see you again, please, 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 all of you, have a very blessed rest of the day and have a very blessed week, everybody. Bye bye.